think if we took some C4K shirts, they would notice.
Those are pretty nice sweatshirts back there. We'll just put a Mosaic logo over it.
We should start making fan posts and making them in here.
He is
a little car.
We do kind of do the whole route, like do guest cards or first time guest cards, do merch, do little mugs, a triangle on it.
We gotta have like one that's like
Yeah, how to connect. Yeah, we have a first time a gift for the first time guest in the back.
Yeah, I'm a little bit scared for high school.
A journal.
Sticker.
No, it's probably one of those water bottles. Tervis with a logo on it.
For sure.
How to sign up for our 101 classes.
You want to find a small group?
Yeah, how to find a small group.
Yeah.
How can the people?
I'm zoned for science, so I don't really like minutes. I can always switch.
Yeah, can you please share with us some of your most intimate details of your life? Yeah, you need us to pray for you. Bum bum. Beautiful. Morning, everybody. Happy Easter. How's everybody doing? Look at all the color in this room. This is probably the most colorful shirt I got. How's everybody's brackets doing?
Not good.
I haven't checked mine in a couple of days. So for March Madness, yeah.
I had Duke in my Final Four. So
yeah, so
it's working out so far.
Well, I had UNC too, so
Me too. So
it's a bad day. We should have done a Mosaic tournament with March Madness. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm going to read something over you guys. It's a short reflection on Easter, on resurrection. It's longer, but I just want you guys to take the space to enter in however you need to. You're going to pray, take some time to pray. You're going to listen to what I'm reading, do that as well, or you can if you want to. Grab a phrase or a word that stands out and then tune out if you need to do that. However you need to enter into the space today, I invite you to do so. So we can take a posture of prayer if you want. I'm going to read this over us, and then I'm going to play a song, and then we'll name the good together. So let's take on a posture of prayer as I read this. I often wonder why so much of human life seems so futile, so short, sometimes so sad. If Christ is risen, why do people die before they begin to truly live? Why has there been nonstop war? Why are so many people imprisoned unjustly? Why are the poor oppressed? Why do we destroy so many of our relationships? If Christ is risen, why is there so much suffering? What is God up to? It really doesn't make any logical sense. Is the resurrection something that just happened once in Jesus's body, but not in ours? I believe the resurrection of Christ is saying that the final judgment has happened. It's nothing we need to fear. It's nothing we need to avoid or deny. God's final judgment is that God will have the last word. Easter reveals that there are no dead ends. Ultimately, nothing is going to end in tragedy, truly. Of course, we look around us at history and at life and its daily moments, and it seems that that's not true. And yet, ever and again, here and there, more than we suspect, new life breaks through for those who are willing to see and to cooperate with the mystery of the resurrection. We're so lucky in my part of the world that Easter coincides with springtime. This applies to you, applies to us. I hope you're going out and seeing the leaves, the flowers being reborn, after months of winter. As I went out this morning to see the Easter sunrise, sure enough, the sun rose, as it always does, peeked over the horizon between the two mountains, and appeared not so much like a sunrise, but as a groundswell. The light was coming from the earth. It was coming from the world we live in. It was coming not from the top, but from the bottom. It seemed to say that even all of this, which looks muddy and material, even all of this which looks so ordinary, sometimes dying, will be reborn. Easter is the feast of hope. It's the feast that says God will have the last word. That God's final judgment is resurrection. God will turn all that we maim and destroy and hurt and punish into life and goodness and beauty. What the resurrection reveals more than anything else is that love is stronger than death. Jesus walks the way of death with love, and what it becomes is not death, but life. Surprise of surprises. It doesn't fit any logical explanation, yet this is the mystery, that nothing dies forever, and that all has died will be reborn in love. So to be Christian is to be inevitably and forever a person of hope. God in Christ is saying that this is what will last. My life and my love will always and forever have the final word. Resurrection. Let me pray for us, and then we'll play a song. God, we're here. We're yours. We show up as we are with what we've got, whatever that is, the questions, the doubts, the baggage, the joys, the things we're celebrating, stuff we're trying to hold on to, the blessings, the good in our life. We're holding it all. At the same time, we're trying not to check it at the door. And it's all under the notion that we know that you're inviting us to the table to come as we are and not as we should be. So as we talk about new life, we talk about resurrection. God, I want to start there, that we can show up and we can do the things. But even if we don't feel like showing up, or it's hard to show up, Jesus, you show up to us. Even as I just read, like even in the sunrise, God, I think that you're speaking to us. And so we're here. We're leaning in. We're at the table. And Jesus, I ask that you help us. Help us to see each other. Help us to hear each other. As we see each other and hear each other, I pray that we see you and we hear you. I pray, thanks your name. Amen. We'll play a song for you guys in the spirit of resurrection. It's Springtime by Chris and Zimma. So if you want to follow along, feel free to. But I'm going to play it for us, and then we'll name the good.
You're the resurrection that we've waited for. There is a night, came with the morning. You're the King of heaven, praise is yours. Under the quiet, loud in the cornerstone. We will sing a new song. Steady, steady, gonna make a winner. We will sing a new song. Hallelujah, flow like a river. We're coming back to life. Reaching souls to life. Your love is like springtime. You're the living water, God, we thirst for you. The dry and the barren will flower in you. You're the sun that's shining, you restore my soul. The deeper you call it, oh, the deeper we'll go. We will sing a new song. Steady, steady, gone with the winter. We will sing a new song. And hallelujah, flow like a river. We're coming back to life. Reaching towards light. Your love is like springtime. Come tend the soil, come tend the soil of my soul. And like a garden, and like a garden, I will grow. I will grow. Come tend the soil, come tend the soil of my soul. And like a garden, and like a garden, I will grow. I will grow. I will grow. We'll sing this song. Hallelujah, so like a river, coming back to life. Reaching towards the light. Your love like springtime. Like springtime.
All right, everybody. We can name the good or name the blank, however you want to take it. But what's the good, the true, the beautiful that you've encountered or seen or tasted or looking forward to or whatever, wherever you've been, whatever you want to name? Let's come together and we can share it at the table. Me and Taylor finished Love is Blind season 6, so we made it all the way through. Are we better people because of it? I don't know. Probably not. Are we more skeptical of reality, love shows? Probably. We got lots of time, so I'll just wait. Drew just finished the Rubik's Cube, so that's good.
Actually, this one's a new one. I just got it yesterday, so
Nice. What's your record on that one?
2 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Impossible.
You want another world record, Gabe? 0.4 seconds.
See, I don't know if that's possible. Anything?
I feel like a broken record when I talk about this, but I guess just this place. When I was young, I never really liked church and really hated it, to be honest, and I always thought there was something wrong with me and was always kind of told there was something wrong with me. And so stumbling into this place was just interesting because I didn't hate it, and it confused me even more, to be honest. But I mean, this has been the one constant thing that I've looked forward to for 2-ish years, and it was nice to not feel like shit, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
and I don't talk to half the people in here, but I mean, just coming here every week and just being here is just great.
Yeah, we love you. Glad you're here. Front row all the time.
No back row.
No back row. That's right. That's right. What else?
I'll echo that. I'm going to say anything, but yeah, based on that, yeah, I feel really similarly. Yes, most of y'all know it's been a really tough year for our family. Even in the last few months, the way everything's played out, like I have had moments of a lot of anxiety where, especially in public spaces, like to get around a bunch of other people and to try to, present yourself as like everything's okay, when inside like you're not okay. And so church even can be difficult for that reason. Something that you posted this week, Blake, I can't remember, I'll paraphrase, but I don't know who said it, but it was just like, Jesus is okay if you skip church on Easter Sunday. He loves you anyway.
Yeah.
And I just read that. I was like, thank you. Like, I don't know if I'll show up here today, but regardless, I know that I'm still loved. And that meant a lot. It meant a lot that, like, it comes from not just somebody in this church, but, kind of the representation of what this church is supposed to be. And that it's okay, it's okay that if I'm here, if I make it here, and 60%, wanting to be somewhere else or whatever, like that's okay. And so yeah, I'm grateful for that. Grateful for the space to not feel like I have to be rah-rah on Easter Sunday. There's a lot of guilt that I grew up with, thinking that it should be otherwise.
Sure. No, that's good. Thanks for sharing that.
I tried really hard this morning when I was drinking my coffee to think of something good. Like I just was racking my brain trying to think what's been good. Like, can you think of one thing? And I couldn't think of one thing. Because I'm scared. This whole week. I went into a labor lesson day, and I'm very early, so that was really scary. And so I'm currently on permanent bed rest, so don't tell my doctor I'm here. And as much as I love solitude and trying to think, it's also too much of it is not a good thing. And so I was really angry this week. Like, not being able to do anything that brings me life or brings me joy, and being terrified of doing the wrong thing that's going to make him come out too soon. And I feel like I can't. I feel like I should be able to say something good because, but I guess, like Andy said, I think what's good is just that I can say that out loud, that this week wasn't good. And, but my only hope and the only thing that I have to hold on to is that I don't know what's going to happen in anything. Like, I don't know what my life's going to look like, what his life's going to look like. But I know that God will be with me.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Yeah.
And that just has to be enough for today. So the fact that life comes after death is the only thing that's good today.
Yeah. We're glad you're here. Sometimes it feels like you're still stuck in Saturday, like Good Friday, and you're stuck in Saturday. And It's part of the healing and part of the process is being able to name it and just be able to say, like, I'm still there. Like, it's still Saturday, So thanks for being honest. I paused the recording too, so your doctor doesn't know you're here. Sorry, Doc. She's not in the room. Anything else?
Just following up on what she shared, I just want to say I resonated with the line that we listened to that said, love is like springtime, and just all of the hope that's represented in springtime and that we see all around us right now. And I really resonate with that because like the disciples on Saturday, they didn't know what was going to happen, but we do know. And so even when we're in those spots where we don't know the future, it may turn out really bad from our perspective, but our perspective is limited and it's just right now. But from the eternal perspective, there is always hope. And we, knowing Christ, knowing the resurrection, we hold on to that. And we know that in the end, it's all going to be okay. Even when it feels like in our life, it's not.
Sure.
So just really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. This is Aiden's parents, by the way.
Yeah.
Glad you guys are here. Anything else? All right, you guys want to do it? All right, let's do it. If you got a Bible and you want to look along or follow along, go to Mark 16. We'll be getting in Mark chapter 16 in just a second. Mark, we believe, is the earliest gospel. Most churches aren't reading this passage today, so I thought we would. So give us some more airtime. But before we begin, last week I quoted Casting Crowns. So this week I'm changing it up, doing something a little bit deeper, which is funny. So this brings back elementary school for me for some reason. But we'll talk about it in a second. But here it is. You guys probably know it. It's a song. God sent his son. They called him Jesus. Anybody yet? He came to love, heal, and forgive. I'm gonna start singing it. He lived and died to buy my pardon. An empty grave is there to prove my Savior lives. Anybody? There we go. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. I can hear the Gaither Vocal Band. That's all I can hear. My mom, I was homeschooled in elementary school. My mom we just listened to CDs from the Gaither Vocal Band on the way to school. And anyways, there's like a 4-minute video of them performing this song live. And I was listening to it this morning, and man, it is like killer. Like, I mean, it is like rock star. And Guy Penrod comes in like 2 minutes in. I don't know if you guys know Guy Penrod. He basically looks like a white Jesus. And he just comes in. It's just powerful. I mean, that's it. That's all I gotta say. But because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. It's like the song I always think about when it comes to Easter. There's lots of songs, but that one just rings in the back of my mind. And I want to come back to it in a while, so just hold that in your brain. Does resurrection have anything to say to my day today? I think it does. It's this ancient thing that we talk about all the time, really, but we celebrate on a day as Christians. We get dressed up and we do this stuff, and we talk about eventually, or we talk about way back when with Jesus. But like, to me right now in the Saturday, like, is there something that's speaking to me in this idea of resurrection? I think so. And I hope we can dance with it a little bit. In typical Mosaic fashion, we're just going to jump off the ledge and just see what we find. I think there's so much here, and I'm hoping just to throw us overboard and see what happens. So if you're looking at Mark 16, we'll be reading in verse 1. Mark 16, verse 1. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, bought spices with which to go and anoint Jesus. Very early in the morning on the first day of the week, they went to the tomb just as the sun was rising. They'd been saying to one another, Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb? When they looked, they could see that the stone, which was very big, had already been rolled back. On entering the tomb, they saw a young man in white robes seated on the right-hand side, and they were struck with amazement. But he said to them, "There is no need for alarm. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See, here's the place where they laid him. But you must go and tell the disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. It is there you'll see him, just as he told you." And the women, shout out to Louie in the back, blowing bubbles. He was doing that this morning at like 5 a.m., just awake and alive. And yeah, it was, just hear it on the monitor. The women came out and ran away from the tomb because they were frightened out of their wits. I love that phrase. This is the Jerusalem Bible, so I like that phrase. They were frightened out of their wits, and they said nothing to a soul, for they were afraid. We could keep going. But that's our earliest account right there of this missing Jesus, this resurrected Christ. But to understand that, I think we have to go a little bit further back. So we're going to zoom back 600 years. To talk about that, we're going to go backwards a little bit. There's this Jewish story, and we've talked about it 1,000 times, but just because it's Eastern, I think this is important, very important. In about 587, Israel was ransacked by Babylon and Assyria in a series of years. And at the end of those end of those raids on Israel, it culminated in their town, their home, their cities being burned to the ground, them being taken out, many being taken as slaves to Babylon. The temple was being destroyed. I mean, it was a brutal, brutal season for them. Ezekiel 37, you guys know that passage, is this beautiful metaphor of a valley of dry bones. And that's one of the places that a Jewish understanding of exile comes from. They take this metaphor of a valley of dry bones to what exile meant. They experienced exile, they experienced defeat in those years, and they equated it with death. Like that was death for them. They went into death during that season. When the temple was destroyed, burned to the ground, is desecrated, that was their entire theology coming down. Like that's where God dwelt. That was where the sacrificial system was embodied. That was all the things for them. And so when the temple came crashing down and is desecrated in that way, I mean, that's everything for them, literally coming down. It's where God was, literally coming down. There's some commentary in the Jewish commentary that talks about the day that God died. It was the day when the temple came down. So like the question that Ezekiel is telling that story of the Valley of Dry Bones, you guys know that story. The question he's dancing around is, can these bones live? Can these dry bones live? Like, have you ever asked questions like that? In Ezekiel, he mentions how he sees the skin and the bones coming together, but there's no breath in them. So it's like the body's moving, but there's no life in it. That's a lot of people's experience of life in general, but also like Christianity at large point, you know, like there's no life here. We're doing a lot of motions, but there's no life in it. I asked Cade. Cade told me I could share this. He's at a mega church this morning with some family, and so they're not here. And he's texting me at like 7:30. They're at this mega church, and nothing against mega churches. But he said on the screen they posted, they had a warning, and it said atmospheric events will be used in the service today or something like that. And he said like smoke was blaring and lights were blaring, and it's like, oh, this is cool. It's like we have all these things happening, but where's the life at? Well, that's the question, you know. You think about your own personal experience, your own life. We can go through the motions. We have the skin and the bones coming together, but there's no breath in it. It's a metaphor whenever things used to feel life-giving, used to have a lot of oomph in them, and it doesn't anymore. A story, a song, a previous held position, theology, or a purpose or a mission or experience or service or whatever it is that used to matter to you, and it comes crumbling down. So that day in exile, that one day when the temple was torn down, a God went down for them. And for us, you can usually pinpoint your own story of days like that too. Can these dry bones live? That's a thing that I'm wrestling with right now. You look at American politics, American Christianity, they're so blurred right now into one. What does it mean to be a Christian? What does it mean to be in politics? Like it's such becoming one entity now where I'm just like, can these dry bones live? Are you with me? Like what's even being a student of Jesus now? Like what does that mean for us? And the lines are being so muddled. And we have churches who put so much more emphasis on their stuff or whatever it is their fog machines, their atmospheric events or effects. We should have had some atmospheric effects today. But there's no life. There's no breath. And to be honest, it's very discouraging for me right now. It's like, can these dry bones live? Think about it for yourself. So Israel's story, their exile story, they go into exile, they lose everything, but they're in a period of exile for 68 years, rounds up to 70. They're in exile for about 68 years. And eventually they go back home. The story doesn't stay there. They don't stay in exile. Eventually, about 70 years later, they go back home. Eventually, they rebuild the temple, all that stuff. The story is affirming in a long form that exile isn't the last word. Okay? That's not the end. These bones can live. Like, breath does go back into the bones. That's the whole story in Ezekiel. It's like, eventually, you will be able to go back home. They get released from exile. The whole purpose of going back home, being back in the land for the Jewish person, is that they're going to be restored back to the land. They're going to be restored and reinstated back to their purpose. They're called to be this conduit of blessing to the world, to a broken and pain-filled world, a wounded world. They're going to be a light to the nations. They're going to be this PVC pipe that God is going to pump water to the nations. It's supposed to be this beautiful light. And the release back home to exile, or from exile, is this reinstating of their purpose. Is like back on the track, getting back on. They were called to partner with God in being a part of this building of a flourishing world, this healing and repair of the world, be a conduit of blessing to the nations. And God shows up again in their life and sends them back on that journey. The new temple is built. You guys know the story. Even Ezekiel talks about it a little bit. New temple is built, but God doesn't show up in the temple. It's like a weeping and wailing moment. It's really cool in the scriptures. They expect God to show up, but God doesn't show up in the temple. He shows up elsewhere. So everywhere as spirit, there's new wine for the new wineskins. God's doing something new. So God's sending them back to their homeland, but he's doing a new thing. He's doing it differently. There's new life coming. The emphasis here that I want you to hold on to is that the restoration of the vocation of Israel. That's what exile was for them. They came home from exile, and as a restoration of their vocation. They were called to partner with God in building a flourishing world, to build a world to where the nations could all sit around one table, have their feasts and fine wine all at the same table. That's what the prophets talk about. There's no inequality, injustice. All the things that pain and wound us are going to be done away with. Everyone's going to be together as a single unity. So when they talk about exile, they're talking about death. They go into death, but they come out on the other side. Exile, death, does not deliver the final blow for their purposes in the world. It's a story for the Jewish person there. God did not give up on his people. That's what they're coming away with. God did not give up on us. He loves us. We blew it, but God didn't show up in anger. He comes in restoration. He's weeping with us the whole time. And like, that's the beautiful part of this. It's like God's with you in exile. Like the temple may have come down, like that version has come down, but God is spirit. God's with you exactly as you are in exile. That's how Ezekiel 1 opens up. Ezekiel is sitting in Babylon as an exile, and God shows up in spirit. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Maybe that's what we need to hear first off. We're talking about this Holy Saturday. You're in the midst of the exile. You're in the midst of this darkness. And we have this idea that maybe God is the one that's pulling the strings of our pain, pulling the strings of our darkness. And if anything, I think this is affirming to us, for one, is that God is with us weeping in the dark night of our soul. That he's wanting to create new life out of it. Like that's the posture of God. That's the God, that's the one that we have. That's the God that we have. The temple may have come down. You may have lost everything, but God is actually in it with you. God's actually in the exile with you. There's the first story I want you to hold on to. And we're talking about Jesus. It's the resurrection of Jesus, what we're talking about today. Jesus was this first century rabbi. The scene is the Roman Empire. We talked about this a lot. Caesar was Lord. That was a common phrase during the day. Caesar is Lord. They also had another phrase. They would say Caesar is the son of God. I didn't know if you guys know this. It's bizarre. They would very often say Caesar is Lord and Caesar is the son of God. Salvation was in no one else besides Caesar is a common phrase then. Peace came through victory is another common phrase then. And peace came through victory for Rome because they killed everybody that disagreed with them. That's one way to peace. If you say no to Rome, they crucify you. If you defy Caesar, you die. A small group of believers and doubters and stumblers started following this Jewish rabbi, learning a new way of being human from him. Jesus taught a way of love, peace, other-centered service, care for the poor, the marginalized, a way of gentleness, dealing with your anger, your lust, your worry, your anxiety, your greed, your hoarding. We've been talking about this for the last 6 months of doing the Sermon on the Mount. And it wasn't in step with the empire, so they killed him. And you know you're dealing with the spirit of empire when you can see how many's on the hit list. It's like there's people who are against us. Those are the other. That's the spirit of empire. Those people, you know. However, Jesus was crucified. There's this group of people that insisted that Jesus rose from the dead. Their experiences, and they insisted that he rose from the dead. Death did not stop Jesus. The empire did not have the last word, did not have the final word. The way of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus kept going. That's what resurrection is it keeps going. They took the popular phrasing of the day, Caesar is Lord, Caesar is the Son of God, and they inserted Jesus in it. This is what we believe about Jesus. He actually is Lord, not Caesar. Jesus was the Son of God. Peace came through victory for Jesus as well, but not through violence, but through self-sacrifice, turning everything up on its head. The group of people practiced the Jesus way of life, of love. They had a wide open table, these early Christians. They centered around food for everybody, an equal status of everybody at the table. There's a new way of being human, a new way of following Jesus here, and kept alive by Jesus, even amidst the empire still ruling and reigning in their life. So you ask people in the first century, who's creating a better world, Jesus or Caesar? How do you make a more healed existence for us? Is it through violence or is it sacrificial love? Is it through peacemaking or is it through more war? Is it through humility or is it through arrogance? Is it through sharing or is it through hoarding? Like, this is the Jesus way. And they said that Jesus rose from the dead. We believe that Jesus rose from the dead. It kept going. Death did not have the final word. So lots of people were buying into this idea of resurrection because it's God vindicating the life of Jesus and the life of love and peace and sacrifice and inclusion and equality, gentleness, the way of Jesus, everything that Jesus was and is about. Vindication means to confirm, to be important, to be meaningful, to be considerable. And one of the better definitions, I think, is to be substantive. It has some substance to it, a depth and a gravity to it. It's saying that there is in these things of Jesus, the life and the rhythms and teachings of Jesus, a depth, a gravitas to it. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control have a center of gravity that satisfies the human heart to be vindicated. The Jesus story was too weighty, it's too meaningful to die. Like, death cannot touch that. Those who Jesus were saying were in were those who the culture of the day were saying were out. Jesus came for the wobbly. This is Brendan Manning. He says, Jesus came for the wobbly and those not too proud to say that they need help. Jesus dared us to trust that he loves us just as we are and not as we should be. He taught forgiveness and compassion, rooting out bitterness, being generous with your time and your resources, peace with others, even the people that are difficult to have peace with, living simply with your possessions and having meals with the other to the extent that they don't become the other anymore. Jesus' resurrection for them meant that that was vindicated, meaningful, important, good, true, beautiful, in the right, justified, reasonable. That's what vindication is. That's so powerful for someone who's under the boot of the empire in the first century. Hate doesn't have the final word. It doesn't have the weight that love does. Arrogance doesn't have the center of gravity. All those identity politics and killing and superiority that was happening, the hypocrisy, the self-service does not have the deeper resonance that Jesus is talking about, that Jesus was about, that the human soul, I think, actually finally and fully desires and wants. There's a new hope from Jesus. The empire strikes back and we can return. Just kidding. Sorry, that was lame. I asked Kate if I should say it and he said to go for it. So sorry. I typed it out and I didn't even mean to. It's just in my blood. The empire does not make the rules. Loss and doubt and silence and inequality and guilt and death don't have the last word. It's the story of Jesus. So what's resurrection? There. Two things real quick. The brutal regimes are temporary. The bully doesn't win. That's the story of the Bible, really. There's hope for those of us who are on the other side. There's a psalm that says, some trust in chariots, but we trust in our God. Like, it's a different way. You can trust in the chariots or you can trust in your God. That's where the Bible is written from the perspective of those who are having to trust in their God. Don't have the chariots. Resurrection was hope that whatever that is that's opposing truth and goodness and beauty and the life of Jesus in us eventually falls away and doesn't have the final say over our lives. But then 2, again, it's the declaration that Jesus' way and his teachings are the gravity for our lives, that his way of life, everything that he was and is about, is an anchor for our soul, a ballast in the times of storm. Healing, repair the world for you and me too, us being put back together again, doesn't come through something like power and superiority, but comes through these pathways that Jesus teaches. So 3 things to synthesize all this. 1, resurrection is a healing and repair plan. It's what it always was. It's a healing and repair plan. In both the Jewish story and the Jesus story, it's not always first and foremost primarily about going somewhere else after you die. It's about something happening beautiful here. Like God is renewing and restoring my heart now and us now. When Jesus says, I am the resurrection, like right now, right here, like resurrection happening now. It's not saying that death is going to stop that later, but the point and the focus is like happening now. Goodness and truth and beauty and life happening in the now. Resurrection is not, this is what N.T. Wright says, resurrection is not an evacuation plan, but a repair and healing plan. In the words of the master Michael Scott, you guys know this. I have to quote Office on Easter Sunday. You guys know it. He says, the most sacred thing I do is care and provide for my workers. This is a great episode, by the way. My family, I give them money. I give them food, not directly, but through the money. I heal them. Today, I'm in charge of picking a great new healthcare plan. You guys know this episode? Right? That's what it's all about. Does that make me their doctor? Yes, in a way. Yeah, like a specialist. Then Jan comes in. So which healthcare plan have you decided on? I'm going to go with the best, Jan. I'm going to go with the one with acupuncture, therapeutic massage, you know, the works. And Jan's like, wait, acupuncture? None of the plans have acupuncture. Have you looked at them closely, Michael? I think it was you who didn't look closely enough at the gold plan. The gold plan, I'm not even on that plan. And then Michael responds, well, I recommend it. It's very good. Resurrection, dare I say, is a gold plan. It's a very good plan. It's the one with the works. It's a story about you and me in the here and now. Some typical stories of resurrection, like I said at the beginning, is about way back when or about way back in or way into the future. Hope is never now. Hope is always later. But there is hope now in Jesus. Like this is the whole story that we're trying to get about. Jan hadn't looked at the plan closely enough. Well, that's our tendency, is to not look at the plan closely enough. The Bible story is about the healing and repair of this place and this time, these people, not just about somewhere else. It's about me and you being repaired in the here and now. Our home is broken. I'm broken. You're broken. So I'm not saying we're not broken and we don't need help. Like I'm trying to say we do need help. This world and what we do matter. In this world matters. Being a teacher or contractor, an engineer, scientist. Put that in there because for Jeremy's a scientist. He does science. I don't actually know what his title is, but he does science. Being a social worker, fly fishing guide. Is that your title?
Yeah, pretty much.
Fly fishing guide. Stay-at-home mom. Greatest food in a flash owner operator. Anybody? Boot in a flash. Healthcare worker, designer, nutrition. All these things. These are all ways that we can help participate in the healing and repair of the world. And this beautiful thing is it's not just out there. It's not just happening eventually down the road. It's happening right here, right now in my heart and in your heart. So how do we do this? Like we step back and we let the healing and repair work of God happen in us, God putting the pieces back together for me. And then we jump in. Like how can you throw yourself into helping make a new world, participating in new creation, a new order, a new gold plan? That's just how we're wired, I think, to participate in the healing and repair of our world. Number 2, resurrection is about new wine. I tried to say this earlier. The Jewish story, remember, God died that day when the temple went down. That's how they view it. When Israel was ransacked by Babylon and Assyria and their temple was destroyed, all their conceptions of divinity went down. And of course, even Solomon says this when he dedicates the temple. He says, we know that God can't be contained by stones. We know that. Like God's not actually going to be contained in this box. Of course, God cannot fully be contained in my brain. Like I'm going to understand everything. We're going to understand everything. We know that. But the idea may not be able to click until it all comes crumbling down. So we look at this like in a metaphor way. I think that's true. Maybe everything doesn't click for us until it all actually crumbles. And I think maybe for them, it didn't click until the day that God died. To riff off of Jesus, maybe they needed the new wineskins to burst, to be fully ready for the new wine to come. To quote Richard Rohr, we may have to have the previous order to become disorder so that a reorder can come. And I think that's a reason we can say that Jesus had to die, that he was radically redefining God to us, what it means to be a part of the family of God, the kingdom of God. He's not primarily changing God's mind about us, but our mind about God. And those conceptions of God, some things need to crumble. And we look at Jesus. I've been saying this for months. You look at Jesus, it's the fullest revelation of God. Like, that's what it means to look at Jesus and say he's the revelation. It's like the most orthodox thing we can say. So we look at Jesus, it's the fullest picture of God. And that is the truest. And we gather around that. So maybe that's the reason Jesus had to die. There's certain things that had to go to the grave. So this is something new could be reborn. And 3, this is the last one. Resurrection is the pattern of our world. I think Jesus wants us to trust it. He's inviting us to trust that this is the story of our world. You look at everywhere else, the whole springtime analogy we're talking about, like, this is how the world functions. Nothing is the same forever. It's what science talks about. Water, fog, steam, ice, all the same thing, different stages, temperatures. You look at the rest of our observable pattern of the cosmos. Everything's in a turn. We use other words like springtime, winter, regeneration, healing, cycles, life cycles, night and day, darkness, light. Everything's on a circle. Israel participated in it. Jesus participated in it. The nature of our world participates in it. So it's like we will participate in it. And Jesus is asking us to trust that this is the pattern of our world. Richard Rohr, again, he says resurrection is another word for change, but particularly positive change, which usually we can only see in the long run. But in the short run, it looks like death. Resurrection is the story. But on the Saturday, it just looks like death. There's the preface to the Catholic funeral liturgy says, life is not ended, it is merely changed. Something else going on. It's not just this Jewish story. It's not just this Jesus story. There's actually something written into the fabric of our world that Jesus is participating in, asking us to trust. So, do we believe a man got back up from the grave? Like, is this the craziest thing that we believe? I think we actually believe crazier things. I had a whole section in here, and I'm not going to do it because just for time, and I don't want to nerd out too much. But it's like, if we could just talk about like quantum physics for 5 minutes, like we would all be astounded. We talk about black holes for 5 minutes, we'd all be pretty amazed. Talk about time dilation for 5 minutes, we'd be blown away.
Doctor Strange.
Talk about Dr. Strange for 5 minutes, like we'd all be kind of blown away. There's this philosopher I've been listening to, and I don't listen to him because I understand him, but he has a great voice, and I like to listen to him. He talks so beautifully. But he was talking about the rate at which our universe is expanding, and I was driving to Morristown, and I was like trying to drive. I was like, my mind was being blown. But he was saying things that like we know for sure, which is really hard to think about with like the edge of the cosmos. How do we know for sure things, you know? And I had a moment, and I was like, is it that crazy that we believe a man got back up from the grave? I don't think so. Because like this guy's asking me to believe that the universe is expanding at point, it's like 26 zeros, 138, something, I forgot the units. And like we know that it's a measurable phenomenon. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is I think we actually believe more science fiction in our day to day. So I think we can gather around it, actually. Our culture is one that swings the pendulum very often. And I don't think we should. I don't think we can. I think we can think straight, but also I think we can gather around this. Like, this is the story. I think this is our story. And this is not just our story. Like, this is the story of our world. And to distrust this, I think we also distrust lots of other things that are happening in our cosmos that you have to have more answers for. So this is my conclusion. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter what you've done, what you've been through, the Saturdays you're currently having, what's in your head or not in your head, or if you have all the right answers or don't have the right answers, or if you feel it 100% or not. Like, the truth of the resurrection is that it's a now thing, that death cannot stop, that loss cannot stop, that debt cannot stop, that anything that's going to happen to you cannot actually stop. Doesn't have the final word on you. Like, you can begin again. Resurrection is the word over you. New life is the word over you. You can start again. The headache or the heartache that you're currently having or going through doesn't have the last word. You can acknowledge it as it's painful, but also because of the resurrection, you can acknowledge that it's not the last word over us. And that's such a beautiful thing for us now. So to end as we began, God sent his son. They called him Jesus. He came to love, heal, and forgive. He lived and died to buy my pardon. An empty grave is there to prove my Savior lives. And reading the other verses. How sweet to hold a newborn baby and feel the pride of joy he brings, but greater still the calm assurance this child can face uncertain days because he lives. I can face uncertain days right now because of something else Jesus is doing in me. Feel the pride and joy he brings, but greater still the calm assurance. Calm assurance. One day I'll cross the river. This is where Guy Penrod comes in and nails it. I should have just showed it. Nails it. It's beautiful. Then one day I'll cross the river. I'll fight life's final war with pain. And then as death gives way to victory, I'll see the lights of glory and I'll know he lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living. Life is worth the living because he lives. Shout out to Bill Gaither, everybody. Happy Easter. New life is presently available to us. We can step into these stories, and I think we find some resonance deeper for our souls. So let me pray, and then I'm done. God, we're here. We're yours. God, I want this for myself. I want this for my friends. I want to believe this more than I do now. All the ways that I feel like I'm stuck or I'm not accomplishing enough or good enough or believing enough or whatever it is, God, I want to approach the table with what I got. And God, I know that that's all you ask. And so even for me, God, I think my soul is crying out that, is this for me? Is this for me too? I think it is. I pray this for my friends too. For the Saturdays in the room where there's no conclusion, or maybe there hasn't been a conclusion for a while, just stuck in the cycle. God, I want to trust the confirmation that it is a cycle. That winter may be long, but spring comes. And I want to let go of me defining what spring looks like, even. But I trust the pattern. I'm trying to trust the pattern. So for myself and my friends here, God, I pray that today we can be a little lighter. We can take ourselves a little bit less seriously. And maybe even, God, take the world around us less seriously and know that hope and love and goodness and truth and beauty have the final word. I pray that makes us laugh a little bit more and walk with a calm assurance and see that life is worth living. I pray in your name. Amen. All right, everybody. Cheers. Happy Easter. We'll do dinner Thursday. Next week, Corey's going to be talking about Matthew 8. So we're going to kind of pick up a little bit after the Sermon on the Mount. Then we do other stuff. So doing that. Is there anything else anybody needs to say? Wants to share? There's more donuts back there. So feel free to eat those. Anything? Cool. Cheers.
Were you timing yourself?
I was timing myself. That was my timer right there. What do you think about that? Nailed it. I was shooting for a minute earlier.
29.
Yeah, that's my goal. Yeah, this was me. 29. That one was
So you're trying to beat your record for fastest sermon, basically.
Yeah, I'm trying to go shorter. That's my goal, is to go.
Well, you got a
less.
19-second one there.
I don't know what that is. Not telling. This was probably me. What was that, last week? Yeah, that was me. I went 37. Yikes.
Minutes?
Huh?
That's not even that bad.
37 minutes.
It's like, that's not horrible.
He's
I've
going
sat in church
for
services for like hours at a time, and it's off. I'm like, I love God, but I want to go.
I need to go home. It's dinner time.
he's going for 29.
I was
Yeah,
going for
that's
10.
not bad.
29's my hit.
I feel like there was one day we were here
With me or Corey?
It was till like 11:45.
I think it might have been Corey.
I think it was
Corey has a tendency to go.
Well, that's because he just gets so distracted. I mean, it's good, but he gets distracted.
Yeah,
I think it was the day he told us a story about how he got pulled over and he had to go to like court. And I think that was
That's a good
the one.
story. It's a great story. Yeah, I'm trying to go less. Plus, it's Easter. I gave you guys enough Jewish history that I was like, it just needs to be short.
Is the stream still going?
It is actually. Yeah. Thanks for asking. That's not it.
I was like, wait a minute.
those chairs